Chapter 81. Rejected. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. Rejected. When Qi Shuyan jumped down again, she didn't go up to the roof as usual this time, but snapped at the others, "Everyone, back away." She took out the Yin ghost gonfalon and swept away the two ghosts that came out of the luck.borrowing array. Father Zhu and the others were really frightened this time, their faces pale as they took a big step back. "What are you doing?" a ghostly shadow questioned menacingly. "I mean no harm, I just want to help you get out of the luck.borrowing array that's underground," Qi Shuyan said. "Hee, no need," a female voice filled with hatred said icily. "I know that you're eager for revenge, but your brother's retribution has already begun. You adding another blow now will only affect your luck and reincarnation for nothing." Qi Shuyan frowned slightly. "It's impossible to let him go. The reason we're like this now is all thanks to him, he's also enjoyed so many years of riches and honor. I must pull out his black heart with my own hands. As for his whole family, I'll kill them all and leave none alive," one of the ghostly shadows said viciously. Qi Shuyan sighed, she felt like they were in the same boat. She didn't want to fight either, but there was nothing she could do about the outcome now. She negotiated, "If you get involved in murder, you won't be able to be reborn. How about I set up a fortune transfer array? You'll definitely be rich people in your next life. You'll be able to enjoy the good fortune that you didn't have in this life in the next life. How about that?" We don't believe you. You're simply trying to trick us into being reincarnated. In your dreams. One ghost shadow rushed up to attack first, followed by the other. Seeing the two ghosts rush up, Qi Shuyan frowned and her eyes glowed coldly. Stubborn. She took out two fiend suppression talismans, clamped between her fingertips. With a flick of her fingers, the two talismans flew accurately toward the two ghosts. The two ghosts couldn't avoid touching the fiend suppression talismans. The places where they were touched blazed and gave off wisps of white smoke. The two ghosts wailed and howled at being burned, making the eerie atmosphere even gloomier and wretched. "It's not too late for you to change your minds." Qi Shuyan was indifferent. She stretched out her palm and recalled the fiend suppression talismans. This kind of high-level fiend suppression talisman was extremely domineering and powerful, capable of dispersing evil spirits and ghosts, so Qi Shuyan was prudent with its use. The two ghosts had suffered enough. Although they were indignant, the celestial master in front of them was tough as nails. The little ghost with the doll flew over between the two ghosts, and after they whispered for a while, a lot of the evil tendencies of the two ghosts dissipated. "Can the array you mentioned just now really protect our fortune in our next life?" a ghostly shadow asked. Qi Shuyan sighed inwardly when she heard this. Her cultivation hadn't recovered yet, so it was extremely taxing on her spiritual power to cast this kind of array, but she had no other choice now. Of course. Just as Qi Shuyan was about to set up the array, she caught a glimpse of Qi Zhenbai, who was standing straight on the side, out of the corner of her eye. Her eyes flashed and an alarm went off in her heart. Qi Zhenbai's great tonic physique was something she had no resistance to in the first place. If she exhausted all her spiritual power and repeated the embarrassing kiss she forced on him last time, then she really wouldn't be able to explain herself in the future. Qi Shuyan's face changed slightly, and she forced herself to calm down as she smiled at Qi Zhenbai. "Young Master Qi, I seem to have forgotten an important array magic weapon in the hotel. Can you help me get it?" Her little heart wouldn't be able to take what happened last time. As soon as Qi Shuyan said that, Yang Xinda stumbled and almost fell. His eyes widened in fright and he waved his hands in horror. "It isn't necessary for young Master Qi to do this sort of errand. I'll go. He even forgot about his assistant beside him." Father Zhu also hurriedly echoed the sentiment. He didn't turn pale with fright like Yang Xinda, but he still wasn't much better. "That's right, Master Qi, have Buchen go." Zhu Buchen wasn't as horrified as the two, but he said without thinking, Sister Shuyen, I'll go. Wait, Qi Shuyen wanted to cry without tears. She gritted her teeth and stared intently at the man who stood out from the crowd not far away, for once hoping that this man would be soft toward her. What else hasn't Sister Shuyen explained? Zhu Buqin was puzzled. Even Qi Zhenbai on the side seemed to be looking deeply at Qi Shuyen with his sharp black phoenix eyes, making her feel immense pressure. She took a deep breath and approached the expressionless Qi Zhenbai with a fawning smile. Young Master Qi, that magic weapon is precious. I would be more at ease if it was you. Qi Shuyen's excuse was lame, but Qi Zhenbai was swayed by Qi Shuyen's smile. Suspicion flashed through his phoenix eyes. Listening to her delicate voice, he secretly clicked his tongue. She really knew how to act cute. Women were troublesome. However, he was still very satisfied with Qi Shuyen's trust in him, so he nodded. That does make some sense. Father Zhu and Yang Xinda were flabbergasted. Not only wasn't young Master Qi angry, he actually agreed. At once, the two looked at Qi Shuyen in awe. Qi Zhenbai's gaze swept over them indifferently, and the two of them started. They were slightly terrified in their hearts and promptly feigned ignorance and indifference. Qi Shuyen let out a sigh of relief when she saw Qi Zhenbai leave after giving a few instructions. She swiftly set up the array, then gave Father Zhu and the others the excuse that she had remembered wrongly about the magic weapon. Zhu Buqing was going to send Qi Shuyen back after that, but she didn't dare go back to the same hotel, and used the excuse that she was too tired and would rest in a hotel nearby. She wasn't lying, setting up such an array had indeed sapped her of spiritual energy and physical strength. She closed her eyes and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. She turned on the soft and dim bedside lamp and very quickly fell asleep. Qi Shuyen was very tired. In her daze, she kept feeling a creepy, sharp and cold gaze on her. She opened her eyes and saw a tall figure standing next to the bed, the shadow it cast covering her, and she was slightly alarmed. But she immediately recognized the person, and wished she hadn't. Qi Shuyen's pupils shrank and her face paled slightly. She moved to the side reflexively. She had just moved an inch, when her arm was yanked forward by a strong force. The tall man placed one knee on the bed. His movements were agile and his large palms, which were as hard as steel, clamped down on Qi Shuyen's slender shoulders. His voice was as cold as ice dregs as he gnashed out the words one by one. You lied to me. Qi Zhenbai was very cool-headed, but when he saw that Qi Shuyen wanted to escape, he subconsciously lunged after her like a beast chasing its prey. Qi Shuyen wanted to cry without tears. Even if you want to settle scores, why now? Her head throbbed. She could already feel her tranquil mood being thrown into chaos. Looking at the purple aura in front of her, the extraordinarily tasty tonic pill burst forth with a fiery light, muddling her mind. Let go of me first. While her mouth said that, her hands wrapped around Qi Zhenbai's neck as if they had a mind of their own and put paid to her words. Qi Zhenbai looked down at the woman in his arms, who still looked like she was rejecting him, and his expression cleared. He now understood a little of what his cousin and Zhu Buqing used to say. If a woman says she doesn't want something, she wants it. If she says she wants it, she doesn't want it. He curled his thin lip and spat out, "Do you like me that much?" After saying that, he suddenly bent down and ruthlessly kissed Qi Shuyen's lips without letting her explain. Chapter 82. Qi Zhenbai's Tyranny. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 82. Qi Zhenbai's Tyranny. Qi Shuyen wrapped her hands around Qi Zhenbai's neck and covered his thin lips with her soft, red ones as she sucked out the spiritual energy from his mouth. If this were before, Qi Zhenbai might have been fooled by this sort of kiss. Now, however, he was no longer satisfied by such a simple kiss. The tip of his tongue was like a wandering snake that pressed against Qi Shuyen's teeth. When he couldn't find an opening, his brow furrowed and the look in his phoenix eyes turned deep. A large palm latched firmly onto the back of Qi Shuyan's head, and a hand skillfully pinched her chin. As soon as he felt her teeth part, the nimble tip of Qi Zhenbai's hot and wet tongue pried them open and darted into Qi Shuyan's mouth like he was besieging a city. Qi Shuyan almost couldn't breathe from Qi Zhenbai's plundering kiss. She had originally been immersed in the comfortable feeling of sucking out spiritual energy, but she almost short-circuited at this kiss. Although she hadn't sucked out enough spiritual energy from Qi Zhenbai's mouth, she had already come back to her senses. Qi Zhenbai, on the other hand, was completely absorbed in the kiss. He was without doubt a quick learner. The tip of his tongue twined around the warm and wet tip of her own, like a small electric current zipping past which scratched at his heart. His firm chest was like a wall locking her in place, making it impossible for her to move at all. Just as he was immersing himself in the thrill of the intimate embrace and kiss, his lower lip suddenly hurt as she bit him. Qi Shuyan pushed at Qi Zhenbai's chest with both hands and reflexively retreated. Qi Zhenbai paused, but suddenly pushed forward to nibble and bite her lips. Qi Shuyan struggled even harder, and only then did Qi Zhenbai let go unhurriedly. "Young Master Qi, can you explain why you're here?" Qi Shuyan got up, rolled over, and moved to the other side of the bed, 8 feet away from Qi Zhenbai. Some of the luster was gone from her dark eyes to be replaced by a diamond-cold edge. She had come back to her senses and there was an interrogative tone in her voice. "Did you forget what Buqing said when he called last night?" Qi Zhenbai sat upright on the edge of the bed and crossed his long legs. The dim light shone on his face, which was like fine, unblemished enamel, and his expression was indifferent like that of a majestic and abstinent god. It was simply a world away from his domineering and wild appearance earlier of kissing and wanting to tear her apart and eat her up, like he was a completely different person. Qi Shuyan secretly cursed this beast in human skin, and was somewhat baffled by Qi Zhenbai's words. "What? What does that have to do with you barging in here on your own? He wished us a long and happy life together, and to have a child soon." Qi Zhenbai spat out these words from his thin lips, and as if afraid she wouldn't understand, he explained very kindly, "So. I didn't break in, I have every right to be here." Qi Shuyan's face stiffened and she instantly remembered the last half of Zhu Buqing's words from last night. It was one thing for Zhu Buqing to misunderstand that the two were a couple, but he also thought that they already had something going on. No wonder he let Qi Zhenbai know to come over. Qi Shuyan took a deep breath and exhaled. She was so angry that she was speechless. Then, what she had done to avoid Qi Zhenbai before was unnecessary. "Young Master Qi," Qi Shuyan couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to explain everything clearly. "Then, shouldn't you explain to me what happened this morning?" "Little liar." Qi Zhenbai suddenly stood up and approached Qi Shuyan step by step, his phoenix eyes scrutinizing her sharply as he forced her into a corner. Qi Shuyan felt her scalp tingle under Qi Zhenbai's sharp gaze. He was a man with a strong sense of oppression. It seemed that his keen eyes could even see through lies. If Qi Shuyan's nerves weren't already tempered, she would have long backed down. She forced herself to calm down. "Uncle Zhu and the others should have explained to you. I didn't lie to you, I just remembered wrongly." "Is that so?" Qi Zhenbai's tone was indifferent and his expression unclear, she couldn't tell if he believed her or not. Qi Shuyan nodded emphatically. She refused to admit that it had been on purpose, and said firmly, "Of course, I feel guilty for making young Master Qi come all the way here for nothing, but I've always thought that young Master Qi is a generous person who won't mind such a small matter." Qi Zhenbai's pair of bottomless, glacial phoenix eyes stared unblinkingly at Qi Shuyan, his whole body radiating a faint domineering aura and pressure that chilled Qi Shuyan to the bone. "Stay away from me first." Qi Shuyan felt a chill at the bottom of her heart under Qi Zhenbai's sharp and enlightened gaze, and she reflexively pushed at him with both hands. He wasn't pushed away, however, just like an iron tower firmly blocking Qi Shuyan. "Up until just now, I was still wondering why you would push me away. I thought it was a prank. Qi Zhenbai's two large palms clamped down on Qi Shuyan's delicate and slender wrists. His cold eyes could look right into a person, his deep, accentuated features revealing the stern demeanor of a leader. But it now seems that's not the case. Qi Zhenbai's phoenix eyes were sharp as if they could see through everything, completely unwilling to miss anything of the expression on Qi Shuyan's face. Seeing Qi Shuyan's incredulous wide feline eyes and pursed lips, he said confidently in a deep, blunt voice, "You lose control once your spiritual energy is depleted." Qi Shuyan stared at Qi Zhenbai in disbelief with her eyes wide open. She had barely managed to calm down, but her psychological barriers collapsed once more. Her face grew paler and paler. Qi Zhenbai's words were like bombs that blew up everything in her mind, clearing it up with a bang. Qi Shuyan's pupils shrank and a chill rose from the bottom of her feet to freeze her heart. This man was too sharp. She really didn't know how she had exposed herself. The secret she had kept so close to her chest was torn open just like that, just like the last time that this calculative and shrewd man saw through her. The more Qi Zhenbai looked at Qi Shuyan in a daze, the more certain he was, but there was no pleasure or superiority in his eyes. He suddenly thought of something and his thick eyebrows dropped in a straight line, his eyes as cold and biting as a blade. He drew close to Qi Shuyan so that they were only a few inches apart and his tone changed drastically as he gripped her wrists tightly. "Have you kissed Zhu Bucheng? Hugged him?" "Ha!" Qi Shuyan didn't react to his question for a moment. Her wrists hurt in his grip and she glared at him. "You kiss and hug him." Qi Zhenbai then seemed to relax a little, and wasn't as aggressive. Qi Shuyan's eyebrows knitted together when she saw that Qi Zhenbai had misunderstood her. If this went on, when would it be cleared up? She exerted all her strength and struggled free of Qi Zhenbai's grip on her wrists with difficulty. She made up her mind to clear the air with Qi Zhenbai. "When my spiritual energy is depleted, I won't randomly touch anyone when I lose control. It's all because of you." His phone rang. Qi Zhenbai gazed at Qi Shuyan steadily, traces of a smile flashing in his bottomless phoenix eyes. He pursed his lips and coughed with his fist against his lips before he smiled. "Good girl, I know." He turned around and went to answer the phone. Bedo Dem Qi Shuyan was stunned. He said he knew. She wasn't finished yet. What did he know? She suddenly realized that her unfinished words were very ambiguous. She was about to say something, when her phone rang as well. Glancing at her phone screen, Qi Shuyan's eyes abruptly widened in pleasant surprise. Chapter 83. Forced Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 83. Forced Marriage. Qi Shuyan got off the plane, took a taxi, and rushed all the way home. When she reached the door of the house, the happiness and excitement on her face faded when she heard the talk inside. "Lingyan, you really want to anger me to death. It's not that I want to lecture you, but why are you as stubborn as an ox? Don't tell me you're still thinking about that woman." An old voice rang out. "That's right, third brother, don't keep thinking about sister.in.law. She's already married and will laugh at you like this," third aunt, Qi Hohat, also advised. "Pooh, what sister.in.law? How can that fickle woman be worthy of my son?" Wu Jufen's voice rose sharply, but her next sentence seemed to be a rebuke directed at Qi Hohat. "Don't let me hear you calling her that next time." Qi Hohat responded awkwardly. "Mom, third sister, that's enough. I'll take care of my own affairs." A mellow, deep male voice in the room sounded somewhat impatient. "I'm doing this for your own good. That distant daughter of your sister.in.law's family is obviously from a virtuous family. Don't look at how she comes from a rural village, she's a college student with a clean background." Wu Jufen, who was in the house, spoke energetically. Seeing that her son wasn't the least bit interested, she leaped to her feet and cried, "Was it easy for me to raise all of you? Look at you now. You've grown up and spread your wings. You don't even listen to me anymore. I've only seen you 14 times in 10 years. You're all alone and there's no woman to take care of the house. If this goes on, how long will I have to wait until you have a son? Give me a grandson. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. Why are you crying? Qi Lingyan was helpless. Yan Yan as my daughter is enough for me. That's not the same. Do you really have hopes for Shuyan? That girl is as delicate as her mother. I already said a long time ago, what's the use of a girl going to school? Won't she become part of someone else's family in the future? You're already very generous, to let her go to high school. Hearing Qi Lingyan's words, Wu Jiufen raised her voice severely. These are words from the bottom of my heart. If you continue to be stubborn, you'll break my heart. When Wu Jiufen saw that Qi Lingyan still remained silent after she spoke, she shot a glance at Qi Hohat on the side. That's right, fourth brother, just agree with mom. Qi Hohat pursed her lips, not the least bit sincere in her persuasion. She didn't want her fourth brother to agree. If he really married a woman, then all the money he had would belong to that woman. Qi Lingyan let out a long sigh. All right, Mom, I promise I'll go take a look. Hey, that's more like it. Wu Jiufen beamed happily and advised earnestly, look at a few of them, there'll definitely be someone you like. But let me be blunt first. Don't marry that kind of witch again who can't do anything and acts like she's so amazing. I know, Qi Lingyan said gloomily. His mother was extremely stubborn and he really didn't want to argue with her anymore. By the way, where's that girl, Shuyan? Seeing that her goal had been achieved, Wu Jiufen's mood improved a bit. After all, even if her son didn't listen to her, he still didn't dare disobey her in front of everyone. So, she asked nicely about the child of that woman. Mom, Ling Xue told me that that girl, Shuyan, hasn't been to class for several days. Qi Hohat had long wanted to complain, and her face was pained. The college entrance exams are coming up. I'm not trying to lecture you, fourth brother, but an adult has to be around to discipline a child at home, otherwise, they'll be like a monkey in the countryside. How outrageous. Wu Jiufen frowned. Her studies are nothing to shout about, just don't waste the money. Lingyan, you can't count on your daughter. I'm telling you, find some time to discuss it with your big brother and the others. Your nephews are much more promising than this girl. Qi Lingyan could give in to his mother in other ways, but when it came to his daughter, he was absolutely unwilling to do so. He shot a cold glance at Qi Hohat, scaring her. He said to Wu Jiufen, Mom, Yan Yan has a sense of propriety. Education nowadays isn't the same as before. There has to be a balance between work and rest. After studying for so long, going out for a breather is normal. Many of the parents around me are like this. Wu Jiufen's frown eased. Although she didn't like Qi Shuyan, she was still her granddaughter. Moreover, Qi Lingyan said that many parents were like this, so her face softened a bit. In the future, as long as Lingyan married and gave birth to a son, he himself would understand her painstaking efforts. Okay, you guys discipline your own kids. I don't have to worry so much. Seeing that her mother was planning to turn a blind eye, Qi Hohat secretly resented that her mother only cared about her son and was so biased toward him. She looked up and saw her fourth brother's cold eyes, and cringed. However, she was sure that in front of her mother, her brother had to give her face. She thought of how her family had suffered recently, they wouldn't be able to endure if things went on like this. So, she gritted his teeth and fawned on Qi Lingyan. Fourth brother, your brother.in.law and I were wrong last time. It's all our fault for thinking poorly and being blinded by greed. But how can a family be divided? Shuyan is at such a critical period of her life, so let's take her back. Our home is a little closer to Shuyan's school, so your brother.in.law can send her to school. No need, third sister, I wouldn't dare let you take care of her. Qi Lingyan sneered. L.RG, what are you talking about? She's your third sister, after all. Wu Jufan spoke up. That's right, we're biological siblings, and look how long I've been taking care of Yan Yan for you. Aren't you going to give me a chance? Chi Hohat sighed. Besides, Ling Xue and the others are really reluctant to part with Xu Yan. Xu Yan is also alone and has no siblings of her own. I'm afraid she'll be bullied again in the future. Qi Lingyan frowned at Qi Hohat's words and pursed his lips. His daughter was indeed too shy. In the end, he said, I'll consider it again, third sister. After speaking, Qi Lingyan sent his mother and his sister home. By the time he came back, it was already dark. Dad, are you really going to go on a blind date? Qi Lingyan, who had just stepped inside, looked up and saw his daughter, who was sitting in the living room. Before he could be happy, he heard Qi Shuyan's question. Chapter 84. Possessed by a Ghost. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. Possessed by a Ghost. There was panic on Qi Lingyan's cold, hard, handsome face, and the fierce slant of his eyebrows lessened quite a bit. His expression changed and he cursed himself inwardly for not realizing that Yan Yan was eavesdropping at the door. He also didn't know what Yan Yan had heard. In the past, whenever someone mentioned to Yan Yan that he was going to marry someone else or that her mother was going to marry someone else, this girl would be so sensitive that she would cry her eyes out. Qi Lingyan had no choice but to coax her and say that he and her mother would definitely remarry in the future. As for her mother, He Qingyun, marrying someone else, Qi Lingyan didn't dare tell Qi Shuyan at all. He walked over, bent down to crouch in front of Qi Shuyan, and said in a gentle voice, Sweetie, no matter what you just heard, it's all Grandma's idea. You're enough for Dad. Seeing that Qi Shuyan was looking down and saying nothing, he immediately added, Of course, Mom will be back soon. By the way, your mom asked me to bring you a gift this time. Do you like it? With that, he stood up and strode up the stairs, picked up several large bags, and shook out a pink dress. He waved it and smiled. Look, your mother is always thinking of you. She would have come over if she wasn't busy over there. This style is too old. Why did Mom choose this? Qi Lingyan's face stiffened. He took a few glances at the dress and couldn't make out the so-called style for a long time. Didn't this dress look alright? He secretly cursed those comrades who had helped him choose the clothes. What taste? They weren't reliable at all. Then I'll give Mom a call. Qi Shuyan was about to dial the number, and pressed a few buttons. Yan Yan, your mother won't be coming back. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Qi Lingyan paused and blurted out the words in a hoarse voice. I know. She remarried, right? It seems she's pregnant, probably with her second child. Qi Shuyan was indifferent, as if talking about a stranger. Perhaps because Qi Shuyan's past life had been too tragic, her mother, He Qingyun, whom she had always missed, never appeared either. Even when she knew that something happened to Qi Shuyan, she only made a few calls. One line of concern in 10 phone calls would already be pretty good, but most of them were endless complaints about how hard it was for her. Back then, Qi Shuyan was naive, not stupid. She immediately got her mother's hint. Once she understood He Qingyun's cold and distant attitude, Qi Shuyan didn't call her anymore. She already could no longer remember her face clearly. Qi Lingyan's mouth dropped open and he looked at Qi Shuyan in surprise. When he calmed down, it dawned on him that this girl had been testing him. She didn't even have He Qingyun's number. Qi Lingyan's feelings were complicated, but he sighed in relief. He had always wondered what his daughter would do if she ever found out about this. It was going to come out sooner or later, but he didn't expect her to accept it so calmly and indifferently. Looking at such a sensible and obedient daughter, he wasn't gratified over her early maturity, but distressed instead. He was also a bit angry with He Qingyun. He didn't dare say that he hadn't let He Qingyun suffer a single grievance all these years, but he dared to say that he had given her everything he could during that time. At the restaurant, Chen Ru looked at the tall, handsome, and valiant man in front of her. He wasn't the old man she had imagined at all. Her lack of interest in this meeting immediately changed and she introduced herself generously. Qi Lingyan looked at the ordinary-looking girl, who could only be regarded as young and delicate, in front of him. She was more than 30 minutes late, so she should be equally as uninterested in him. Her expression when she came in had even been impatient. Qi Lingyan's sharp eyes had caught it, but he didn't care. He just couldn't dissuade his mother from going through with this, but he had no intention of remarrying. It wasn't that he couldn't forget his old feelings for He Qingyun, but that he didn't want his daughter to suffer the slightest grievance. These were his thoughts, but he replied politely to the other party's words and didn't make things awkward. "Sister, that auntie looks so dark, almost darker than uncle." Lin Haoxing snuck a glance at Qi Lingyan's table and couldn't help but puff out his cheeks. Qi Shuyan almost spat out the tea in her mouth when she heard this. The girl across from her father indeed had darker skin, but she looked to be in her 20s. How could she be called an auntie? "Little brat, you'll get beaten up for talking nonsense like this." "Humph, I'm not wrong. For those who are good-looking, call them sister, and for those who are ugly, call them auntie." Lin Haoxing counted on his fingers, then suddenly cocked his head and said worriedly, "Sister, your father is so handsome, he won't really fall for that auntie, will he?" "But they don't match at all. It's not my dad who's interested, it's my grandma." Qi Shuyan's eyes turned cold. She could accept her father remarrying, as long as he wanted to. When it came to her grandma, however, it was like the woman was forcing a marked down, slow selling product on her father. Qi Shuyan was displeased. It was even more infuriating than in her previous life, when her grandma had scorned her for being a jinx and had planned to wrap her up like a present for a balding man in his 40s. If the woman wasn't her own grandmother and her father's mother, she would have already dealt with her long ago. "Sister, hey, look. That man is so strange. He actually has 2 heads on his neck." Lin Haoxing's voice was crisp and clear as he pointed at a table. The people around the table heard him clearly and turned to give him inexplicable looks. When they saw that it was a child, they took it as a child's nonsense and didn't take it to heart. Her train of thought interrupted by Li Haoxing, Qi Shuyan turned to look at the table Lin Haoxing was pointing at. The 2 men and 1 woman sitting at that table also happened to be frowning at him. "What nonsense are you talking about again? Did you watch a cartoon of Neza sprouting a 3 heads and 6 arms before this? Your thoughts are running wild now." Qi Shuyan looked awkwardly at the people at the table and smiled in embarrassment. When her eyes shifted to one of the imposing men, her gaze paused for a moment. A trace of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she quickly turned her head as if nothing had happened. "Right, sister. I'm not talking nonsense. Clearly they're the ones who can't see it." Lin Haoxing puffed out his small chest indignantly. "Okay, cut it out, eat your lover's set." Qi Shuyan briskly rubbed Lin Haoxing's little head. Recalling how the waitress had stifled her laughter when Lin Haoxing pointed at the couple's package and said he wanted to eat it, Qi Shuyan felt somewhat helpless. Qi Shuyan stood outside the men's restroom and waited for Lin Haoxing. She had wanted to take the kid to the women's restroom, but Lin Haoxing this imp was too proud to go to the women's restroom despite his age. "Sister, I saw the 2-headed man again. I was scared to death." Lin Haoxing poked his head out and bounced over. "Is he human or a ghost?" "Oh, I know, he must be possessed by a ghost." Chapter 85. Didn't this woman know she already had someone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85. Didn't this woman know she already had someone? Qi Shuyan smiled faintly. "Look at how scared you are. Why would a living person need to be scared? That person was just given a fright and his soul left his body. There was a slight problem when it returned to its original location. Then why does he have two faces and two heads? Lin Haoxing puffed out his cheeks in confusion. Did you take a closer look and see that his two faces and two heads are completely the same? Qi Shuyan smiled faintly and said, the soul didn't fuse well, so it looks like a slight overlap. If he was possessed, two different faces would have appeared. Oh, so that's how it is. Lin Haoxing patted his chest. That scared me. I really thought he was a ghost. By the way, sister, won't it be bad for him? Qi Shuyan pondered for a moment and realized that this situation was still a little complicated. The soul hadn't fused well, so it was easy to see some dirty things that normally couldn't be seen, or even attract them. Now was the most vulnerable moment when a person couldn't receive a shock. If they were frightened a few times, the entire soul or part of it might leave the body. If they were lucky, they might come out of it unscathed. Maybe. In the long run, he'll either turn into a vegetable or an idiot. Qi Shuyan thought about the cases she knew of where the souls had left the bodies. Too few of them escaped unscathed, so she took the middle ground. Qi Shuyan finished speaking and was about to take Lin Haoxing's hand and leave, when the door to the men's restroom opened with a bang and two men came out. A man stared furiously at Qi Shuyan and Lin Haoxing, rolled up his sleeves angrily and threatened, "What nonsense are you saying? Don't think I won't dare hit you just because you're a child. You really have no manners. Didn't your parents teach you what to say and what not to say? Do you like to talk about people behind their backs so much that it's fun to spread rumors about others?" Lin Haoxing was frightened by this man's murderous appearance. He looked like he was going to rush up and hit someone. The boy was timid to begin with, and now, he didn't dare look at anyone. He shivered and closed his big eyes tightly, and turned around to hug Qi Shuyan's legs in fear. Qi Shuyan frowned and patted Lin Haoxing's back comfortingly. She was puzzled by the man's excessively aggressive attitude. He wasn't the host here, so why was he so angry? Besides, what she said just now was the truth and wasn't random talk. Even if he didn't believe it, there was no need for him to get so angry and scare a child. Qi Shuyan looked at the two who obviously didn't believe a word she said. She also didn't want to rush to bring trouble on herself. She had planned to give them a small warning, but it now seemed that it was unnecessary, so she apologized lightly. "Sorry we've offended you." After apologizing, she held Lin Haoxing's hand and turned around to leave. What kind of attitude is that? No sincerity at all. Kids nowadays are really becoming more and more ill-mannered, Qian Hongxin complained. Seeing Yang Feiyu staring fixedly at the same spot, Qian Hongxin elbowed Yang Feiyu. "Feiyu, you don't believe them, do you? Let me tell you, don't look at these types of kids like they're harmless. When it comes to fooling people, even adults can't compare." "I know, it's just that your tone just now seemed too aggressive. After all, it's just two kids." Yang Feiyu snapped back to his senses. "Feiyu, I say, you're just too kind-hearted. You forgot what happened to me. I sympathized with a beggar on the roadside, and see what happened. That man relied on the sympathy of passers-by like us to make a fortune, f*ck. Anyway, in my eyes, all beggars are liars now, especially children." Qian Hongxin clenched his fists. "If they dare to fool me again, I'll beat up every single one I see." "Hongxin, you," before Yang Feiyu could say anything extreme, Qian Hongxin waved his hand first. Forget it, let's not talk about this rotten thing. When are you and Xinfang getting married? She's 3 months pregnant now." The corners of Yang Feiyu's mouth went up and his eyes softened. "Should be this month. You have to treat her well." "I don't think Xinfang has any sense of security," Qian Hongxin suddenly said. Yang Feiyu nodded seriously and patted Qian Hongxin. "Don't worry, I'll treat her well and won't forget the strings you, the matchmaker, pulled. I'll give you a big red packet when the time comes." "Hey, no need. Xinfang is just like my sister. I'll be happy as long as you treat her well. Qi Shuyan led Lin Haoxing out and found that there was no one at her father's table. She hurriedly grabbed a waitress and asked, "Where did the people at that table go?" The waitress looked at the table and said, "They left long ago." She gave Qi Shuyan a strange look. "Oh, thanks." Qi Shuyan was all smiles, thinking that her dad must have found the person introduced by her grandma boring. It seemed that he had probably gone home first. She lowered her head and tapped the tip of Lin Haoxing's nose. "If I knew that it would be over so quickly, I wouldn't have brought you out. Come on, let's go and pay the bill." Lin Haoxing pursed his lips, somewhat resentful that Qi Shuyan didn't want to take him with her, but he quickly grasped her legs with sincerity. "Sister, I'll pay the bill." As he spoke, he took off his backpack and fished out a large panda piggy bank. "You don't have to. Buy yourself candy with that money." Saying that, Qi Shuyan was about to put the piggy bank back inside the backpack. When she took it, however, she found that it wasn't heavy with coins, but felt light as a feather. She promptly took a curious glance inside, and saw dozens of $100 bills folded into hearts. There were at least several tens of thousands of dollars in here. Qi Shuyan's mouth twitched. It turned out that this brat hadn't been exaggerating and was really rich. Qi Shuyan sent Lin Haoxing home and called her father on the way. However, when Qi Shuyan found out that Qi Lingyan hadn't gone home yet and was instead sending the girl home, she was a bit surprised. It had to be known that her father was the kind of person who acted decisively once he made up his mind. If he had no interest in the girl, he definitely wouldn't send her home. "Sister, are you unhappy?" Lin Haoxing asked. He felt that something was off with his sister at that moment. It was a bit like. Lin Haoxing propped his chin in his hand and racked his brain hard. Who was she like? Qi Shuyan shook her head. "Maybe I'm thinking too much. Forget the girl's looks and family background, just the fact that she was distantly related to Big Ant meant that this girl would definitely vent her anger on Big Ant from now on. If she could think of this, so could her father." Qi Shuyan's phone rang and she pulled it out to see that it was Qi Zhenbai. "Hello, young Master Qi. Did you need something?" As soon as Qi Zhenbai heard Qi Shuyan's question, he knitted his eyebrows and was somewhat displeased. It was one thing if this woman didn't remember to give him a call when she got home, but when he took the initiative to call, she actually thought something was wrong. Couldn't he call when things were fine? His handsome face instantly sank, and he said nothing for a long while. When she didn't hear anyone speaking, Qi Shuyan pulled the phone away from her ear and looked at the name on the screen again, thinking that the signal was bad. Hey, young Master Qi, can you hear me? When are you coming back?" After a while, a deep, magnetic male voice rang out. The words, "come back," were used too strangely. It wasn't like she lived there, and she thought that Qi Zhenbai was inviting her out to have fun. She thus said politely, "We'll talk about it after the college entrance exam." Qi Zhenbai was obviously dissatisfied with Qi Shuyan's cryptic words. "Let me know when you apply for the evaluation test. Your grades are good, so you should be able to enter Yanjing University." "Young Master Qi, you're putting me under a lot of pressure like this. What if I perform badly?" Qi Shuyan really didn't know where Qi Zhenbai's confidence came from. Even if her grades were okay, she might not get into that first-class prestigious university. "It's fine. Even if you don't get into Yanjing University, there are other good universities in the capital." Qi Shuyan. "Why do I have to go to a university in the capital?" "Oh, sister, I get it. Were you jealous when they went on a blind date just now?" Lin Haoxing, who had his chin in his hand on the side, suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Recalling how his mother always looked sour when she saw his dad, he was struck with realization, and shouted loud and clear. On the other end of the line, Qi Zhenbai heard the clear voice of a child, and caught the words matchmaking and jealous, in particular. He straightened his back, his handsome face turned gloomy, and his phoenix eyes flashed fiercely. Who did this woman have her eye on? Didn't she know she already had someone? Chapter 86. Blood Drinking Wood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. Blood Drinking Wood. Qi Shuyan glared at Lin Haoxing. This kid was really asking for a beating. She was about to explain to the other party that the kid was talking nonsense, when the phone cut off with a beep. Qi Shuyan was stunned and immediately reacted. Qin Zhenbai had probably misunderstood Lin Haoxing's words. She rubbed the phone screen. Given Qi Zhenbai's proud, noble, and unruly temper, he might never come looking for her again. That was good too. The two had never crossed paths before this, so there was no need to exhaust all her brain juices to explain the misunderstanding before. Qi Shuyan silently turned off her phone. Elder Lin, it seems your body has more or less recovered. Qi Shuyan had just sent Lin Haoxing back to the Lin family, and ran into Lin Chongchang. She greeted the hale and hearty Lin Chongchang, who looked good. Yes, I've almost recovered and the poison has been purged. It's all thanks to Master Qi that I didn't lose my life for no apparent reason, Lin Chongchang said cordially and respectfully. It was naturally no coincidence that Lin Chongchang and Qi Shuyan ran into each other. He had been eagerly waiting for many days for Qi Shuyan to come to his door, but seeing that she still hadn't returned from the capital to Fuzhou, he burned with anxiety. Days felt like years. Although he knew that Xingxing had Master Qi's jade pendant to protect him, this jade pendant has been used a number of times. Better safe than sorry. When the time came, it would be too late. Moreover, he was more afraid that Master Qi would have long forgotten about his grandson. He had been planning to go to the capital to find her personally, but hadn't expected Qi Shuyan to come back and even take Xingxing out to play today. Only then did he feel some relief. It was because of your good fortune, Qi Shuyan said modestly. Master Qi, don't be modest. What good fortune? If I really were blessed, I wouldn't have let a wolf into the house. Lin Chongchang sighed slightly and waved his hand. After getting the nanny to take Lin Haoxing away, he looked eagerly at Qi Shuyan. Master Qi, I searched a long time for the blood-drinking wood that you described last time. Can you take a look? Qi Shuyan nodded and said, okay. The last time Qi Shuyan looked at the feng shui for Lin Chongchang, he had asked her how to expel the fox immortal from his grandson's body, and she had given him a method which involved blood-drinking wood. Blood-drinking wood was a type of spiritual wood that could only be found by luck. It was extremely precious and overflowed with spiritual energy. Not only could it be used to refine medicinal pills, it could also be used as a support token. Qi Shuyan went to see the dozens of pieces of different dot-sized wood in Lin Chongchang's collection. Unfortunately, as Qi Shuyan had expected, none of them were blood-drinking wood. After all, if it could be found so easily, blood-drinking wood wouldn't be considered rare or valuable. Lin Chongchang, who was filled with hope for a miracle, saw Qi Shuyan's silence, and his heart turned slightly cold. Disappointed, he remembered that Qi Shuyan had told him that this blood-drinking wood was rare. His voice was dry as he asked, Master Qi, is there no other way? Qi Shuyan sighed softly. Lin Chongchang didn't look good either. She was about to say something, when she suddenly felt a weak wisp of spiritual energy. Following the trace of spiritual energy, she looked at a corner and pointed to a wooden ink pen wash cylinder. What's that? Oh, this was a gift from a friend in the mall. Lin Chongchang wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. He was hit hard and felt a bit down, but he still perked up to entertain Qi Shuyan. He took the item and asked, Master Qi, do you like this pen wash? The engravings on it are indeed very unique. If you like it, I'll give it to you. Elder Lin, are you really going to give me this piece of blood-drinking wood? Qi Shuyan took the pen wash from Lin Chongchang's hand and deliberately teased with a smile, then I won't stand on ceremony. Lin Chongchang's eyes widened. What did Master Qi just say? Did he hear wrongly? This wash was actually blood-drinking wood. What a waste of a heavenly treasure, to dig out the middle of such a big piece. Qi Shuyan frowned and looked at the blood-drinking wood in her hand, then shook her head and said, "It's fine if it had been turned into a carving, but how could it have been made into a pen wash? The spiritual energy has diminished quite a bit, what a waste." Master Qi, then can it still be used? Lin Chongchang came back to his senses and was pleasantly surprised. But hearing Qi Shuyan's words, he couldn't help but worry again. It's useful, once the spirit energy is replenished, it can be used. At Qi Shuyan's words, Lin Chongchang was relieved. When Qi Shuyan got home, she found that Qi Lingyan had also returned and was cooking in the kitchen. Qi Shuyan probed subtly to see if Qi Lingyan was interested in the person introduced by her grandma, but he said it wasn't easy for the girl either. There was sympathy in his words, but no other meaning. Only then was Qi Shuyan's heart at ease. Chapter 87. Zheng Shujun's luck is borrowed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87. Zheng Shujun's luck is borrowed. Ning'an First Middle School, College Entrance Exam. Did you bring your exam permit? Did you bring your 2B pencils? And 50.5 black pens? Qi Lingyan examined Qi Shuyan's transparent pencil case again and again, and was relieved when he was sure there was nothing missing. Qi Shuyan looked at her tall and sturdy father, who was turning her transparent pencil case around in his hand to examine it seriously as he murmured nervously to himself, then burst out laughing. "Dad, I'm the one taking the college entrance exam. Why are you nervous?" This girl, treating good intentions as ill intent. Qi Lingyan knocked Qi Shuyan lightly on the head, then rubbed his own chest in a fluster. Afraid that he would affect Qi Shuyan, he did his best to calm down. "Don't panic when you go in. If you encounter any questions you can't answer, put them aside first and then look at them carefully. Remember not to hand in your paper early, and check a few more times." Okay, I got it. Dad, you go home and wait. The flower beds here are full of bugs and mosquitoes. Qi Shuyan felt somewhat helpless. Her father was too unlike himself today. Looking at the sea of nervous parents, Qi Shuyan urged Qi Lingyan to go home. Shuyan. Li Shaoting waved at Qi Shuyan from afar. "Dad, my friend is calling me. I'm leaving." Qi Shuyan said goodbye to Qi Lingyan and ran over. We're in the same exam room. Where's Shujun?" "Oh, she's in the exam room next door. Don't worry about her, she has company." Li Xiaoting's expression was neither cold nor indifferent, but Qi Shuyan could tell at a glance that something was off with her. "What's wrong? Did you have a quarrel with Shujun?" Zheng Shujun sat in front of Li Xiaoting. After Qi Shuyan, Li Xiaoting got along the best with Zheng Shujun in class, so Zheng Shujun and Qi Shuyan's relationship was pretty good. Li Xiaoting was silent for a while and didn't speak. As they walked down the corridor, Li Xiaoting raised her eyes and saw two people coming toward them from the other direction. She suddenly sneered. "She climbed a high branch and doesn't care to be friends with us at all." She pursed her lips as she spoke. Qi Shuyan looked in the direction Li Xiaoting indicated and happened to see Zheng Shujun and Feng Yanli coming over arm-in-arm. "Xiaoting." The moment Zheng Shujun saw Li Xiaoting, her body stiffened. She struggled free of Feng Yanli's arm and was about to go forward to talk to Li Xiaoting, but Li Xiaoting turned her face away with a flick of her ponytail and went to the exam room. "Shuyan, you're back." Zheng Shujun greeted Qi Shuyan apprehensively. "Shuyan, you're so mean. Everyone went to my house for a party, but you didn't come," Feng Yanli said in a strange tone. "What's wrong with your face?" Qi Shuyan ignored Feng Yanli and looked at the pimples that had broken out on Zheng Shujun's originally delicate white face, her fair skin now much darker with brown spots. In contrast, Feng Yanli on the side was in high spirits. Her face was rosy and her coarse yellow skin had become much fairer. Even the perennial pimples on her face had faded quite a bit, and her skin had become fair and smooth. Nothing, it's probably because I haven't been properly balancing my studies and rest lately. Seeing that Qi Shuyan didn't ignore her, Zheng Shujun sighed softly and touched her face consciously. Feng Yanli was livid with rage when she saw Qi Shuyan ignore her directly. Qi Shuyan looked unblinkingly back and forth between Zheng Shujun and Feng Yanli, and the more she looked, the more she found it strange. It was as if their situations had switched completely. Zheng Shujun's appearance now coincided with her appearance in Qi Shuyan's previous life. A terrifying guess immediately formed in her heart, and the warmth in her eyes gradually dissipated. Okay, Shujun, let's enter the exam room. Feng Yanli originally wanted to greet Qi Shuyan as if nothing had happened, but she couldn't take Qi Shuyan's cold stare, and urged Zheng Shujun to go instead. Oh, okay. At Feng Yanli's urging, Zheng Shujun waved at Qi Shuyan as she walked forward. Well, see you, Shuyan. In that moment when Zheng Shujun turned around, wisps of black cadaveric qi swirled around her back. Qi Shuyan was stunned. She clearly hadn't seen any cadaveric qi on Zheng Shujun just now, and she immediately reached out and grabbed Zheng Shujun just as she touched her arm. All of a sudden, a series of images appeared in her mind. First, she saw a few people shoveling dirt in the middle of the wilderness as they dug a huge pit with a black plastic bag next to it. Once the pit was dug, one of the men walked over and picked up the black plastic bag with one hand to throw it into the pit. Halfway through, the black plastic bag tore in half, and with a thud, something black and round rolled out of the plastic bag. Qi Shuyan focused and her eyes widened. That round, ball dot-like thing was magnified in her mind and she clearly saw that it was a head of hair. The messy hair covered half the face, which was stained with blood, and terrifying knife cuts and bloody froth covered the cheeks. The eyes, which died with remaining grievances in them, were ghastly and terrifying. Even though this head was disfigured and stained with blood, Qi Shuyan could tell that this was Zheng Shujun. Chapter 88. Jealous Feng Yanli. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 88. Jealous Feng Yanli. Qi Shuyan pulled at Zheng Shujun's arm and the latter paused and looked stumped. Puzzled, she asked, Shuyan, what's wrong? Qi Shuyan stared at Zheng Shujun. Although acne and brown freckles were scattered over her cheeks, there was no black aura at all. The faint black aura which lingered on her back had dissipated like the morning mist. If Qi Shuyan hadn't seen it for herself, she really would have thought that everything was just an illusion. It's fine. Qi Shuyan withdrew her measuring gaze and smiled faintly. I went to a very good temple to ask for many peace talismans. I'll give you one. May we get top marks and succeed in the exam. The uneasy Zheng Shujun also smiled, the worry between her eyebrows dispersing quite a bit. Shuyan, thank you. I believe we can definitely get into the college we've always dreamed of. Definitely. She said the words to Qi Shuyan and to herself at the same time. After watching Zheng Shujun enter the exam room, Qi Shuyan turned around and left for her own room. Qi Shuyan was in a complicated mood. She never thought that after foreseeing Zhu Buqing's death, she would foresee the death of a second person so soon, and it was Zheng Shujun from her class, whom she was on good terms with. Compared with Zhu Buqing, Zheng Shujun's situation was obviously much more complicated. Zhu Buqing could rely on talismans to turn the situation around, but that peace talisman could clearly only slow down the rate at which Zheng Shujun's luck and life force were being borrowed. That was what made borrowing of luck so terrifying. Once the borrowing of luck began, it was difficult to stop. When a person was alive, their bad luck would never seem to end. After fearfully surviving one calamity, there would be an even unluckier calamity waiting for them. It would get worse by the day, and there was a limit to a person's luck and life force. Once all their luck was used up, they would basically be dead. Jing Shujun would end up in that state because her luck and life force had been borrowed. Qi Shuyan remembered Feng Yanli's phone call to invite her to a party a few days ago, and how she had flatly declined. Jing Shujun must have gone to Feng Yanli's party. Her luck in life was pretty good, so Feng Yanli had targeted her, like a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Qi Shuyan's eyes gradually turned cold. In her new life, she didn't expect that Feng Yanli still wouldn't change her ways, resorting to unscrupulous means to defy the heavens and change her fate. Qi Shuyan walked out of the exam room and didn't expect to see Yang Hongxing outside the barricade. He was dressed casually and was leaning against a tall, lush tree with his arms crossed. Surrounded by several girls, he looked a little impatient. Qi Shuyan noticed that Feng Yanli and Jing Shujun were among the girls. Feng Yanli desperately wanted to squeeze in and talk to Yang Hongxing, but the other girl's combat power couldn't be underestimated either. Just as Qi Shuyan was hesitating whether to go over and find Jing Shujun, Yang Hongxing, who was about to flare up at being surrounded, raised his head and saw Qi Shuyan standing not far away. He instantly beamed with happiness. Mas. Shuyan. Yang Hongxing was about to call her Master Qi out loud, but suddenly felt that this title didn't suit Qi Shuyan's current identity and sounded superstitious, so he changed to her name. Yang Hongxing happily waved at Qi Shuyan with a smile. He hadn't been this friendly earlier. He quickly squeezed out of the circle of girls and rushed to her. His move stunned the girls who had just surrounded him. They were shocked and turned around to see which demoness had captured young Master Yang's eager attention, and saw an extremely beautiful girl. Shuyan, how did you do? Was the exam difficult? Yang Hongxing hurried forward and expressed his concern. It's okay. Qi Shuyan looked at Yang Hongxing and the girls behind him, then teased with a smile, I didn't know you were so popular. Having seen too much of Yang Hongxing's fawning appearance before, Qi Shuyan found this aloof side quite novel. Didn't know. How is that possible? I've always been popular. Yang Hongxing felt wronged. He wasn't lying. No matter where the party was, as long as he drove up in his luxury car and just stood there, plenty of girls would crowd around him. Only Master Qi was completely impervious to his charms. Did you come here to wait for your cousin? Qi Shuyan smiled, remembering that Yang Hongxing seemed to have a cousin here who was also taking the college entrance exam. Yang Hongxing waved his hands and whispered with some urgency in his eyes, no, I was waiting here especially for you. You must help me this time. Seeing that Qi Shuyan was silent, Yang Hongxing followed her gaze and turned his head, only to see Feng Yanli approach them. The rest of his sentence was cut short with a frown, and he knew that this wasn't a good place to talk. Shuyan, so you know young Master Yang too? Feng Yanli came up and tried to get close. Qi Shuyan glanced at her indifferently, then ignored Feng Yanli and turned around to leave. With some people, even pretending to be polite and maintaining superficial peace disgusted her. Seeing Qi Shuyan leave, Yang Hongxing immediately followed without even greeting Feng Yanli. Feng Yanli's face immediately turned livid with rage. It was as colorful as a palette, changing from green to white, and her features twisted. She thought that in front of young Master Yang, Qi Shuyan would at least give her some face even if she disliked her. After all, the two used to be friends and classmates. She didn't expect that Qi Shuyan that be *tch would be so heartless and mercilessly humiliate her. What made her most angry was that even if Qi Shuyan humiliated her like this, young Master Yang actually still fell for her tricks. Feng Yanli looked incredulously at the backs of the two who were leaving. Looking at Yang Hongxing's tall back in particular as he left, Feng Yanli felt wronged. She had already lowered herself and compromised for the better, so why couldn't he see her? She stared fixedly at Qi Shuyan's face, which was as beautiful as a peach. Gradually, a few hints of madness appeared on her face, as if she wanted to tear off that face. Would young Master Yang like her as long as she was as pretty as Qi Shuyan? Chapter 89. Master Chi, you can't leave someone to die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Master Chi, you can't leave someone to die. Qi Shuyan frowned. She felt a gloomy and cold gaze like a snake slithering over her back which made her twitchy. It wasn't until they got in the car that the feeling disappeared. Did you say you need help? Qi Shuyan asked. Your complexion looks pretty good, it doesn't look like you're in trouble. It's not me. It's my aunt's son, who is also my cousin. He was supposed to be getting married during this period, but my cousin's girlfriend insisted on going to the amusement park. In the end, he was frightened by a worker at the haunted house and fainted. He collapsed and has yet to wake up. The hospital examined him for a long time, and can only conclude that my cousin is in a coma, Yang Hongxing quickly explained. That my cousin is my third aunt and her husband's only son. We've hired many experts both local and from abroad, but they still haven't found anything. Yang Hongxing sighed. In a coma. Wait, young Master Yang, are you mistaken? I'm a celestial master, not a doctor. Shouldn't you be looking for a doctor now that he's in a coma? It's not like I know how to treat illnesses. Qi Shuyan spread her hands and pointed at a bus stop up ahead. It looks like I can't help you. Stop at the bus stop in front. Yang Hongxing slammed on the brake at the traffic light and panicked when he heard that Qi Shuyan refused to help. If they weren't in the car, he would have hugged her thigh. He quickly turned his head and wailed pleadingly, Master Qi, don't be like this. You can't leave him to die. My cousin is my aunt and uncle's only lifeline. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Master Qi, you can't leave him to die. If you refuse to help, my cousin is finished. Qi Shuyan had a bad premonition when Yang Hongxing turned his head. Looking at Yang Hongxing howling, the corners of her mouth twitched and she facepalmed. Stop howling, I'll go. But let me say this first. If your cousin is just sick, then I can't be of any help. Master Qi, I knew you wouldn't leave me in the lurch. Yang Hongxing wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of his eyes and beamed in the next second. Don't worry, you'll definitely be able to help this time. Why do you have so much confidence in me? Qi Shuyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you still remember how I fought with Yeren a few days ago to buy talismans and magic weapons from your Taobao shop? I gave one to my mother and she scolded me. Later, my father found out that I bought a lot of your talismans and scolded me for being a wastrel and engaging in feudal superstitions, and beat me up again. Yang Hongxing felt bitter just thinking about those days. My father even burned almost all the talismans I bought. Yang Hongxing's heart throbbed in pain when he thought of how those talismans had suffered at his father's hands. My parents felt that you tricked me and brainwashed me, so they almost sued your shop. Yang Hongxing was a bit embarrassed at this point. I defended myself desperately to them. They no longer planned to sue, but when they saw how hopeless I was, they froze my allowance. Ha! Then won't I be kicked out if I go to your third aunt's house? Qi Shuyan was a bit worried. No, of course not. Yang Hongxing seemed afraid that Qi Shuyan would turn around, and immediately said, My mother saw how miserable I was, and since I was being filial to her, she carried the talisman on her. She then met my third aunt and couldn't stand seeing her cry all day long. Using the excuse I gave her, she claimed that the talisman was blessed by a master, just so that my aunt could have some hope. She didn't expect my aunt to instantly bring the talisman to my cousin. Once it was placed on him, it really was useful. The golden lines on the peace talisman turned black and it turned into powder. My cousin woke up too, but he lost consciousness again soon after. Yang Hongxing was also stirred up when he said this. He slapped his thigh fiercely. You didn't see how excited my aunt was at that time. She straightaway took away the other 2 talismans that I had risked my life to protect. Yang Hongxing raised his head and heaved a sigh of relief. He chuckled and proudly recalled his parents' stunned faces when they heard the news. He did say he had good taste. Originally, his parents didn't believe him and thought that their son had been cheated by a charlatan and was spending money recklessly. Who would have thought that this talisman was really useful? His father's pained and reluctant expression in particular was still fresh in Yang Hongsheng's mind. Since this talisman was of some use to your cousin, it seems that he isn't just sick, Qi Shuyan said lightly. Chapter 90. Qian Hongxin, playing the blame game. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. Qian Hongxin, playing the blame game. The Yang family. In the living room, Su Yunxin was anxious as she suppressed her excitement and worry. She rubbed her hands and stood up from the sofa from time to time to look at the door. Seeing no one come after a while, she frowned and murmured, "Why aren't they here yet? It's been so long." Second sister, "Why don't you call Hongsheng?" Third sister, "I called him 5 minutes ago and Hongsheng is already on the way. What's the use in being anxious? Sit down and wait patiently." Su Jiqing looked helplessly at Su Yunxin, who was fidgeting. "It's only been 5 minutes, but why do I feel like an hour has passed?" Su Yunxin said as she clutched her chest. Su Jiqing pulled Su Yunxin to the sofa and comforted her. "Okay, third sister, you're just wandering around. Sit down first." Her third sister was making her nervous, but she understood. If it was her son, Hongsheng, who was unconscious, she would be on pins and needles too. "Ma'am, as a junior, I shouldn't say anything, but I'm really worried that in your anxiety, you'll fall into the trap of some crooks instead." Qian Hongxin, who was sitting on the other end, couldn't help but say, "You're a highly intellectual person, how can you believe this futile nonsense? Even young Master Yang was probably fooled by that charlatan. What do you want me to do?" Su Yunxin dropped her forehead into her palm sorrowfully. Finding so many experts was useless. Should my son wait to die? I don't care if this master is a liar or not. If he really is a liar, what is being tricked once or twice compared with a glimmer of hope for my son's recovery? Alright, Yunxin, Hongxin also means well. You were also too harsh with your words. Yang Wenbin patted Qian Hongxin's shoulder and said to him apologetically, "My wife is just too anxious, and once she's anxious, her words aren't pleasant. Don't mind her." "How can that be? I totally understand how you feel, but I think this method is really too unreliable." Qian Hongxin looked at Yang Wenbin, who was on the sofa, and hesitated. "Think about it, you're a professor in the Department of Physics at a university. If word got out that you're dabbling in feudal superstition, your reputation." Yang Wenbin followed Qian Hongxin's train of thought, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that this method wasn't reliable. If his son didn't wake up after they tried this, his own reputation would conversely be affected, so he frowned and said, "Yunxin, I think this child is right. This method is really unreliable. Let's forget it. When the time comes, I'll get my friends who are in this area to find a few renowned foreign experts." Still looking for experts, was everything before just for show? Su Yunxin was unusually firm and shook her head. "I have to try no matter how unreliable it might be." Su Yunxin recalled how since her son's mishap, those local and foreign experts tried countless times, but none of them could find a cause for his unconsciousness or explain it. They could only conclude that he was in a coma. She really didn't find them convincing. Moreover, Su Yunxin had investigated the celestial master whom Yang Hongsheng recommended. That celestial master was the one who solved the incident with the Zhou family's kid and Hongsheng and his friend being possessed in this period of time. It also confirmed what Hongsheng said about the celestial master being capable. Moreover, when she put the talisman on her son, she saw with her own eyes how the golden lines on the talisman turned black one after another before it eventually exploded into dust. Her son had also suddenly woken up for one moment. This was much more reliable than those so-called experts. "Ma'am, the more impatient you are, the more opportunities there are for those crooks to take advantage. Qian Hongxin frowned helplessly. He really felt that ma'am was too stubborn and inflexible. Furthermore, it's impossible to prevent the current scam. If we try one thing on top of another, we might end up with double the loss before he's cured. Mom, what Hongxin says actually makes sense. Lu Xinfang, who has been secretly crying these days, raised her head and hesitated. Aren't we just rushing to give the swindlers money like this? I saw something about this sort of superstition fraud on the news just a few days ago. Alright, I know you're worried. I know my limits. Su Yunxin looked at Lu Xinfang on the side and touched the back of her hand. Xinfang, you're pregnant, don't think too much. Ma'am, Qian Hongxin still wanted to say something, but Su Jiqing stopped him with a glance. She frowned at Qian Hongxin. Before, she had thought that this student of third brother.in.laws was outstanding and smart, and diligent and obedient, with a boundless future ahead of him. How could he be so pedantic? It wouldn't hurt to try. Her impression of this young man thus plummeted drastically. As soon as Yang Hongxing stepped into the Yang family's living room with Qi Shuyan, almost everyone sitting on the sofa stood up abruptly and looked at the two people at the door. When they saw Yang Hongxing enter with a young and extremely beautiful girl, they were stunned. It definitely couldn't be such a young person. Filled with doubts, they looked at the door a few more times. Third uncle, third aunt, this is the Master Qi I told you about. Yang Hongxing introduced Qi Shuyan helplessly when he saw everyone looking at the door. The moment Qian Hongxin saw Qi Shuyan, he recalled the young lady he had seen at the restaurant. His eyes widened in surprise and panic. Seeing that everyone was looking at Qi Shuyan, he took a deep breath, lowered his head, and restrained the look in his eyes. The others also stared suspiciously at Qi Shuyan as they sized her up. Qi Shuyan really looked too young. Even Su Yunxin was no exception. Looking at how young this girl was, she wondered if she really could wake up her son. She worried about the gains and losses. Young lady, you look like you're still a student. Yang Wenbin asked. Qi Shuyan was long accustomed to doubtful gazes like these and nodded without saying anything. Bnoel dem, young Master Yang, are you serious? Letting such a young girl who's still studying come and treat Feiyu, what on earth are your motives? Qian Hongxin took a few steps forward with an agitated and mistrustful expression. Everyone was stunned by Qian Hongxin's sudden agitation. Yang Hongxin was stunned and angry. Qian Hongxin, what do you mean by that? Can it be that I, a member of the Yang family, still want to covet my third aunt's family assets? I didn't mention names, humph. Qian Hongxin tried his best to quell his anger and said to Yang Wenbin and Su Yunxin on the side, Teacher, ma'am, I didn't want to say this, but I can't bear to see you cheated. Last time, Feiyu and I ran into this little girl and a little boy at a restaurant spreading rumors about Feiyu. One look and I knew that she was a swindler. Feiyu and I caught her red-handed, and she ran away out of guilt. I didn't expect to run into her here today. Yang Wenbin and Su Yunxin were stunned. Who knew something like that would happen? It was no wonder Qian Hongxin was so angry. Could it be a misunderstanding? Su Yunxin still trusted her own nephew more. Qian Hongxin snuck a glance at Lu Xinfang, who immediately reacted. Mom, I remember that Feiyu also told me about this last time. I just treated it as a joke and let it pass. I didn't expect. Yang Wenbin and Su Yunxin's faces immediately changed at Lu Xinfang's words. If the words of the proud student, Qian Hongxin, convinced them a fraction, Lu Xinfang's words immediately added 70% credibility. The way Yang Wenbin and his wife looked at Qi Shuyan changed, from doubting her abilities to wondering if she really was a consummate swindler.